Hello, hello, and thank you for joining. My name is Dimitri, and I'm Partner Success Manager here at Talking Points. Super excited to walk you through your new school admin accounts and help you get started. So without further ado, let's go. So quickly, just to know about Talking Points, we are a two-way, multilingual family engagement messaging platform, which I know is a mouthful. For me, one of the most important pieces is that two-way piece where now you and your staff can send information to families, but they can also send information back. They can respond. They can, send pictures and videos. So it really allows for, once again, two-way communication. We do support translation in 150 languages using a combination of AI or machine learning, as well as human translators as well. And then lastly, we are a nonprofit in the edtech space with, the mission to remove the language barrier for family engagement. But I think we've noticed that removing the language barrier isn't enough, but supporting families that may work the night shift or aren't tech savvy or on the teacher and staffs and not being able to call all of their families in one night or speak their language. So once again, super grateful to be able to partner with you and your team to bring this and deepen engagement with your families. So the way that Talking Points works is we do have a variety of ways that partners will send their information over to us. So some partners will have an automated connection through Clever or ClassLink or TP connector. And then other partners will do a CSV upload. But what that means is that, when your staff log in, you'll be able to see, they'll be able to see all of their classes. They'll see their students and their family contact information. That way, when they're ready to send their first message, they can send it to one student's family or all of their families. In that audience, if there are any home languages, let's say we're sending a message school-wide, we'll do the work of translating it into the home language for that family. You don't have to worry about indicating it needs to go out in Spanish, Tagalog, Gujarati, French. Nope, we do that work for you. On the family's end, if they get it in their home language, they can respond back in their home language. And then when they hit send, it'll translate back into English for you and your team. So for your teachers, they'll be able to use the mobile app or the web browser to communicate. Once again, the mobile app is completely optional. For admin, we definitely recommend using the web browser version of Talking Points that has all of the functionality. You won't get that on the mobile app. So once again, for school admin, we recommend using the web browser to communicate with your families, where you'll be able to send out messages, once again, school-wide, by class, or to individual families. On the family's end, when they get that first message from you and your team, it'll come through as a text. That means that they can respond back. Now they have that two-way communication enabled. There's nothing they have to do to get started. And then what they can do is actually, if it's sent from the school admin account, they can save that as, Main Street Middle School. Or if it's sent from a staff member, they can save it as Senor Duckery, the Spanish teacher. One thing to note is that the numbers families are getting communications from are one that Talking Points has paid for. So you and your team's information will not be shared with families. We actually don't even collect your mobile numbers to be able to share that with families. So it is confidential. We also have our mobile app called Talking Points for Family that they can download, not because we want to take up more space on their device, but there's a bit more functionality that comes with that. And one of the most important features is that if they don't have unlimited messaging, they will be charged for that communication. So if they have the app, they can communicate with you all for free. They also have access to text to speech and speech to text, where now when they get a message from you all, they can have it read aloud on their phone. When they're ready to respond, they can actually get it, hold a button down and say their message aloud. We'll draft it for them and they can hit send. Another nice thing is that if families have multiple students at the school or in the district, the app keeps all those conversations in one place. And then lastly, on your end, for you and your team, for families that are on the mobile app, you'll be able to get delivered receipts. So you can see when a message was sent to Dimitri's family. And then you can get read receipts and you can see when Dimitri's dad opened the message. So on this next screen, you'll see a little bit of the experience on the family's end. So on the left-hand side are what it looks like to get a communication via SMS text. Right here, this third image, is what it looks like from the mobile app for families. And then to the right, we actually have a web browser version that families can use as well. So once again, in summary, families don't have to do anything to get started. They can communicate back and forth via text, or they can download the mobile app or access Talking Points on their web-based browser. So on the screen are our 20 most high instance languages. We still have 130 more that we support that aren't listed here. So if you do have any questions, reach out to our partner support team or to your partner success manager, and we'll be able to support you there. So I used to be a former high school Spanish teacher, so I'm not going to nerd out too much on the translation, but just some things to note is that first I mentioned, we do have AI machine learning built into the platform, and how that comes out, let's say that, in Spanish, you're communicating with the family and that's their home language. Sometimes they may just write the letter K or the letter Q instead of the actual word que, Q-U-E. We've seen that happen enough where if they just write the letter, we'll change it to the word que before it gets translated back into English to make sure that message arrives in your inbox making sense. We also have our educational glossaries. So for families that are using the mobile app, if they get a message about an IEP meeting or a 504 plan, or, in education, we love acronyms. They can actually click on that word, get the context in their home language. So for example, if they get a message that something was differentiated for their student, now they can click on the word differentiated and they'll see, oh, that means that it was designed based on my students' learning styles and needs in mind. Okay, that makes sense. Lastly, our team of human translators are always there to support. So if you do get a message, let's say you're speaking with Dimitri's family, they speak Haitian Creole, and you get a message back in English that doesn't make sense, you can actually send that to one of our human translators. They'll be able to review it and get back to you saying, oh, it was a typo on mom's end. Here's what she meant to say. Or they also have that cultural context so that if there are sayings that don't translate well from one language to the next, they can jump in and clarify that for you as well. And lastly, I really love Talking Points because it allows all of your families to be engaged. So sometimes when information is relayed through a student, a grade of a D, by the time they get home becomes a B. Or, if like we all know, handouts when given to a student could end up under a desk, crumpled up at the bottom of a book bag. It evaporates, a dog eats it, who knows where it goes. Whereas now you all can send that information directly to families and they'll get it on their mobile device. So before we jump into a set of demo accounts, just a few things that we'll be doing together. First, I'll show you how to review your staff and student rosters. I'll then show you how to set up custom groups for things like extracurriculars or athletics at your school site. I'll walk you through how to send your first announcement to your families. We'll then review your analytics dashboard. And then lastly, we'll make sure that you can adjust your account settings to make sure that it's working for you. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to jump into Talking Points. Quick note is that in Talking Points, there are 3 levels of accounts. The first are going to be teacher or staff level accounts. They'll be an all white screen. They'll be able to communicate with any families they have access to or that are rostered to them. Right now, we're in a school admin level account at Kara's Elementary School. So as school admin, you'll be able to send messages on behalf of the school. You can see conversations, happening across the building. And then you'll have a bird's eye view in terms of, engagement at your site. And then lastly, we do have a district admin level as well. So right now we are in the school admin. When you first log in, you'll see your admin inbox. Something to note is that the admin account is a shared account. So even though you all have separate logins, it will all bring you to the same page. When you send messages from this site, it'll come out on behalf of Kara's Elementary School. And then, your other assistant principals or leaders can see the conversations here. If you did want to see all the conversations happening across the building, you can click on all messages. You can also have it broken down by staff member, by student, or by class. So what I'll show you next is how to review your classes and groups. So for example, classes are going to be coming directly from your student information system. So either through that nightly sync or through that CSV upload. So if you click on one of these, you'll be able to see the staff member that has access and all the students that are connected to that class. Coming to groups, so we don't have any here, but this could be a great way to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to add in our football team. Now, once you add the group, you'll be able to add your students that'll be part of that grouping, and then you can give staff access. So what that looks like here is going to the football team. When you add students, you can either add them individually, okay? Or for our partners that do have that nightly sync, that automation, you'll be able to add students through just by listing their IDs through a CSV upload. When you do that, just to give you an idea of what that sheet will look like, it'll be their student IDs listed here. Double check with your partner success manager to make sure you're using the correct ID, but that could be helpful if you have a larger group, like a football team where 60 students try out and you don't want to add them all individually. Once you've added the students, now you can share this with staff members so that when they go to log in, they'll be able to communicate with those families as well. So let's say these 3 staff members are the coaches or the trainers supporting our football team. Now, when they go to log in, they'll be able to see this group and communicate with those families. I mentioned a little bit about messaging. So if you go up here to where it says send a message, this is where you can send out those school-wide blasts. So once again, when you hit all classes, that will go school-wide, or you can select a particular class or student. One thing to note is that when you, on the right-hand side of your screen, if you did want to filter and send this across that audience just to the families of your L students, you could filter that here, or you can even filter by language group. This could be helpful if you have an attachment in that language, or if you're having an event where you have an interpreter that speaks that language, you can let those families know, hey, make sure you come out on Friday. There'll be somebody that speaks your language. You can ask questions to them live, and they'll be able to give you a response. By default, it will go out to all language speakers across that audience. Hello, good morning. A few things that you can do in your account. First, if your district or school has the Universal Admin Communications package enabled, you'll be able to add audio messages or video messages, or you can send this message as an email. If you don't have that enabled, no worries. You can still add attachments from your computer. One thing to know is that if you do add attachments, they won't go through the translation process. So we do recommend, trying to include as much in the body of that message, or if you have an attachment that's already translated, for example, in Spanish, using that filter by language to get it to those Spanish-speaking contacts across your building. You can also add images or videos here, files from Google Drive. This is where you can actually add polls to get information quickly and easily from your families. And then you can even add backgrounds. So for any families using the mobile app, they will see these cool backgrounds in the app. So for example, a back to school night message, you can have the chalkboard, or maybe you have spirit, you can throw in your school colors. 2 things I want to highlight with you here that will save you all some time are, first, the ability to save messages as templates, and then scheduling messages. So right here, let's say there's a message that you're going to find yourself sending pretty regularly. So there's some partners that will use Talking Points to communicate with families around, attendance if their student is absent. So what they can do is draft that message once, hit save as template. It'll then ask, do you want to save it in that shared admin account under one of these categories, or do you want to save it for your teachers and staff to use? One thing to note is that when you're saving templates, you can save them with attachments. When you're ready to use it, you can go down here to view templates. We have a few that are already pre-populated in some of these categories. One thing to note is that when you're, sending messages or announcements, you can add customizable fields. So for example, now when this family gets the message, they will have it with their student's first name in there, customized for them. Even if you have multiple students on that message, each family will get their own student's name there. And then once again, any that you've saved for your teachers and staff will appear here under teacher templates. Scheduling a message could be really helpful. Let's say that you're sending a message to families about back to school night next Friday. What you can do is then the day before, you can schedule a reminder message letting families know, hey, don't forget, tomorrow's back to school night. We can't wait to see you all. When you schedule it, once again, that's one less thing that you have to remember to do. Like a crock pot, you can set it and forget it. You'll also be able to schedule recurring messages. So if you have a PTA meeting that meets the second Wednesday of the month, you can do that. Or maybe a tutoring group that meets every Tuesday, you can send that message and say, hey, I want it to be sent for the next 10 weeks. So coming out of this modal here, when you click on your students tab, this is where you'll have a bird's eye view of all the students at your school site. You can, organize them by class or by group. You'll be able to see, just some kind of an overview information. So these status tags are also very helpful to see if the family member is getting communication via text, if they've downloaded the mobile app, if they've unsubscribed, or if they have an invalid number. And an invalid number means that it's a landline coming over or a mobile number that's gone out of service. For any reason, you can also filter it by the top to see all of the families who have unsubscribed or all of those invalid numbers, and you can download that information as well. Coming to your staff list, this is where you can review your staff rosters, see who already has an account, who needs one, but also, what are their permission levels? So for example, April Bashard, she is a teacher. When you click on classes and groups, you can see which classes and groups she has access to in her account. Let's say you wanted to upgrade her role. For our, automated folks, we do have this non-rostered staff piece as well that you can use. If you do have that automation, it'll add them to the automatic grade level classes in their personal account. So that could be helpful for, nurses or counselors that need access to students across the building, but they don't have a particular roster of students they support. You can give them that non-rostered staff access. We also have a role called technical school admin. And what this does, it actually gives folks access to the admin level account where they can help manage data, they can create groups, they can, add new staff members in, they can view analytics. However, what they can't do is send any messages or polls on behalf of the school or view any of those conversations. So if you want someone to help with, administrative tasks, but you want them to see all the conversations, this could be a great role for them. Some folks will use it for their main office secretaries or their office team. And then let's say you do have a secretary that just joined and you want to give them an account. You'll be able to, enter in their first and last name, their email address, and then set their permission levels here. So going to our family invitations, this is a great way to let families know, hey, here's how you can download the app. We do have these in the different languages that you can send out to your families. Coming down here to polls, this is a great way, once again, to get information from your families quickly. So a lot of folks may use this, in the beginning of the school year. Let's say we're using a back to school night reference. Will you be attending back to school night? Okay. Now, at the moment, you can send single question polls. So you may say yes and no as the answer choices, and maybe you have one more for not sure. The nice thing is that these auto replies allow you to kind of, get a little bit more granular there. So we've had some partners that if families say, yes, I will be attending back to school night. Hey, we can't wait to see you. Here's a survey link. Please give us any questions that you have. And that way, during the back to school night, we can make sure that we tailor it based on those questions. An auto reply for those that say no, you could say, you know what, we'll miss you at the event. However, here's a link that be really helpful that has important resources for families to know that you would have received if you were there in person. However, I'll make sure that you get it on your device. And then if you're not sure, maybe you don't have an auto reply. So once you, create this poll, you'll be able to see the response breakdown here. So you can see exactly who said yes, who said no, who said not sure, and then who hasn't responded. Lastly, here on the analytics dashboard, this will give you a great bird's eye view into first, who are your family? So you can see the breakdown by language group and by L status. I also want to highlight this number here, messages. This will measure the total number of interactions from school to home and home to school. So definitely keep an eye on this, as the year progresses and see how it grows. As you scroll down, you'll be able to see the breakdown of invalid versus valid phone numbers, unsubscribed versus subscribed families, and then you can also see how families are using Talking Points by getting communication via text or if they've downloaded the app. As you scroll down, this is where you can see usage by admin. You can also see usage by your teachers and staff. And let's say you want to see it for the entire month, you can break it down here, or maybe for the entire school year, you can do a custom range and then have it broken down by week or by month. You'll be able to see the same thing for families. And sometimes it's really helpful to see, oh, you know what? In September, messages were really high, then it dipped a little bit, and then went back up in early November. You'll be able to see the trends across the different levels. And you can say, oh, you know what? It went up in November because that was our, first round of conferences. Going to this teacher engagement tab, when you pull this up, it'll show your four most engaged staff members. So it's not populating here, but let's say April admin has sent 8 million messages this year. She'll be highlighted there. You can adjust the date range as well. And it can be, really helpful to highlight in a newsletter. At the bottom, it'll list all of your staff members so you can see everybody's engagement. And maybe you have some folks that aren't as engaged. It could be helpful to then connect them with April and say, hey, April, would you mind sharing some best practices or even some wins that you've had so far using Talking Points? Now, going down to the bottom left-hand side of your screen, when you click see what's new, this is where we'll have, really helpful updates in terms of things that Talking Points has been working on. So we have some back to school webinars. Here we have some different features we add each month. We do include emojis next to it. So the hearts are more family facing. Pencils are for your teachers and staff, and the backpack is for school admin. So for example, at the end of last school year in June, we were able to add 4 new languages. So definitely keep your eyes on here to see what's new in your accounts. If you have access to multiple school sites, you can click on one of these to do a lateral change. Where it says your name, very important. When you click on first notifications, this is where you can adjust how many emails you receive from Talking Points with important messages. So maybe you want 1 email for every message that comes in. Maybe you want 1 email per day. Maybe you don't want any emails at all. You can set that here. One thing that you can also do as school admin is, drop down into your teacher level account. So I recommend this. Let's say you want to send a message to Dimitri's family. You want it to come from yourself. So let's say you're Principal Johnson. You don't want it coming from that shared admin account. You want it to come directly from your own personal account. You can first give yourself that non-rostered staff access by going to the staff tab, finding yourself and checking the non-rostered box. Then once you drop down into teacher mode, it'll bring you to this all white screen. You'll be able to have access to all of your students and families. And then from there, you can send that message. Once you're done, you'll be able to click go to school mode, go back to your school. And now you'll take the elevator back up into your school admin level account. A few other things to note is that, if you have district level access as well, that can be your elevator up. And then going down here where it says get help, let's say you're working through your account and you have a few quick questions. You can either click on find articles to go to our help center where we have a bunch of different articles and things organized by topic. We include as many visuals as possible. So images, GIFs, step-by-step directions for you. Or let's say that, you can't find the answer to your question or you notice something a little bit strange in your account. You can click on start a conversation. That will put you in touch with someone from our partner support team who are real live humans. They'll be able to jump in and support you there. So I hope this has been helpful to kind of get you started with your Talking Points accounts. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, any questions you have, feel free to, lean on our partner support team or our help center or reach out to your partner success manager. Thank you so much. Have a great school year and happy messaging.